Hi Stitchy friends, my name is Barb. I am Stitch Brat here on Flosstube and also over on Instagram. Today is April 7th. I'm filming in the morning and this is Flosstube, my Flosstube number 10. So welcome to everyone. This is going to be a recap. This is my channel about cross-stitching and my love for cross-stitching, where I show all my works in progress, my whips, my finishes, and usually talk about my plans and so forth. So today I have kind of a recap of all my March stitching. I generally do this once a month. So I have a couple of finishes and one segment finish of a stitch along, and then I have my crate of whips, maybe I don't know, 12 or 13 whips to show you. And then I do have a teeny topic for today if I don't run over too long, and then we'll wrap it up. So let's go ahead and get started. I usually start with finishes, so I think I'll go ahead and do that again today. My first finish, if you saw my last Flosstube, you won't be surprised. This is the piece that I stitched for my nephew's new son. So it's a birth record. And I had it almost done, I believe, when I showed this last month. And now it's finished. I just had the words, I think, his name, I think, to put in and his birth date. And so obviously I've done that, which turned out to be a little bit trickier than what I had anticipated. I'm not terrible at charting things with graph paper, but this was, making it look nice and fit in there was not all that easy. I'll bring it up a little closer, although I see I'm cutting off the light. I really love this pattern. This is from Nikki Pattern on Etsy. I've stitched quite a few of her designs. She has some beautiful things, and this wreath I just really liked. I believe this was a wedding design and I just changed it to a birth record, but I think it looks really nice that way. I stitched this on 32 count flax linen, and I believe I used all the called for colors, which were just DMC colors. I might have changed one of the greens just to make it a little more contrast, but I think everything else was exactly the same. So I am going to finish this into a pillow for the new parents, but I just found out that they are moving across the country. So even though I'm going to get this done, I'm not necessarily in a huge hurry, because I'm not going to send them something that they then have to pack in a box to move across the country. So I'm going to they're moving pretty soon, so I'm definitely going to wait until they're moved in before I give it to them. So I haven't found any fabric yet for the like backing fabric for the pillow anyway. So I have to go to a craft store or Joann's or something and do that as well. So that'll give me a little bit of time to do that. So hopefully you'll see that as a full finish sometime in the future. Okay, my next one is, this is maybe both, excuse me, this is maybe both a start and a finish. I can't remember if I showed this last month or not, so forgive me if I did, and I've forgotten. I am going to a couple retreats this year, and I need smalls for the smalls exchanges for them. So I am going to stitch a needle book, and this is from a Stacy Nash design. It's called Boxwood Manor, and here's my finish of the first one. So as you can see, this is for Stitch North 2024, which is in just a couple of weeks, and then this is the design. I think in the Stacy Nash pattern, she actually has this, like, she calls it a thread book or a thread card, I forget, thread folder or something like that. And hers is bigger. I think hers comes out at like if you use the fabric she suggests, that maybe like 5 by 7 or something. And I did mine on 36 count fabric so that it would be a little bit smaller. So obviously this is going to be the front of the needle book here, and then this is going to be the back. You know, I thought about not showing this until after the retreat, which is coming up in a few weeks. But then I thought, you know, the odds of somebody who's going to the same weekend at Stitch North that I am seeing this, and then, well, I don't know, and even if they did, and even if they actually got my needle book in the Smalls Exchange, I don't know that seeing this video would ruin that. So I just decided to go ahead and show it because I really love it. So here's the design up a little bit closer. So I stitched this on 36 count linen from Bestitch Me called, I think it's called Vanilla Latte. And the threads I used, Stacy called for various overdyed threads. I had a bunch of overdyed threads in my stash from a thread club that I used to belong to and that I hardly use. And I just went in and there's only like 5 colors or something. So I just tried to kind of match the colors. And I think it came out great. In fact, I really like the colors a lot. So that's one of them, and I have 2 more I'm going to stitch for other retreats I'm going to later in the year. But I wanted to show those, or I wanted to show at least the one I've gotten done so far. Okay, so my next finish is actually a previous finish from a long time ago. Well, 2021, that's pretty long ago. So just a little bit of background. I recently, in March, reached a milestone on Instagram of followers, and I was very happy. Excuse me. Sorry, I got something in my throat this morning. And I was very happy about that. And anyway, I had a post on Instagram where I did some giveaways in celebration of my milestone and all that. And I asked people to tell me what their favorite piece was they've ever finished or ever worked on or whatever. And by the way, if you want some enabling, go look at that post on Instagram, because there were a lot of things that I'd heard of and patterns that I knew about, but people mentioned things that I'd never heard of before, and I went and looked them up, and you know, there's some great ideas out there. So if you need some enabling, go look at that post. But in the context of that, several people asked me what my favorite finish was. So I did go back on my follow-up post and I told people what my favorite finish was. And then I thought, well, you know, I should show that on my next Flosstube so people can actually see it. Because I'll tell you, this is one, like I can hardly even do this on this board. And you can't get this in a post because in a picture, it's just too big. So my favorite finish that I've ever done is the 2017 Linen and Threads mystery sampler, or mystery sal, whatever it used to be called. So Linen and Threads is now Fox and Rabbit Designs. Most people know that. And they still do a free sal every year. And this was the one for 2017. Now, I didn't stitch this in 2017. I waited and I got the complete pattern and I stitched it later than that. I think, like I said, in 2021. But I did do it monthly. So here it is, and I'm actually not going to be able to get it all in, I don't think. Well, almost. Oh, there we go. So this is it. And as you can see, it's a band sampler. And it's one of the most beautiful designs I've ever seen, and that's all I can say about it. I just think it's absolutely exquisite. I just love it. And like I love each band. That top band was crazy, by the way. But, you know, some of the bands are very narrow. Some are wider. Those bees, oh my gosh, those bees. And the acorns and those stylized flowers. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sampler. And I am so happy I finished this. Now, you're going to say, if you're so happy you finished this, why is it still on your piece of linen and not framed? And I will actually tell you the reason for that too. Well, first of all, I'll tell you that this is stitched on a piece of 36 count linen. It was from a fabric club I was in, and I don't remember the name of it. But I'm not sure how well you can tell. This is a pretty true rendition. It's kind of a gingerbread-y color. It's a very warmish brown and has orange undertones. And then the thread I used was just DMC 300 for the whole thing. I used just one thread. So I actually did intend to get this framed, and I still do. So kind of what happened was I finished it in 2021, and what was going on in 2021? Well, we were still going through the pandemic. And what I discovered, because I needed to have a piece framed, like maybe for a gift or something, when I went to the store I usually go to for framing, I discovered they had basically no frames to choose from. And I was kind of like, what's up with, where's all the frames? And they were like, oh, it's the pandemic. We can't get any frames. We can't get the wood. They can't, the whoever manufactured their frames and then, you know, sent them the pieces or however they do the frames, they said they can't get stock of wood in enough to get frames. So every time they would run out of one type of frame or that, you know, whatever they had in-house, they could never get more from whoever manufactured that molding. So the wall, you know, if you ever go in a framing place, you know, they have those corners that are usually all stacked up on the wall. And usually in any framing shop, there's hundreds of them. And I mean, there were more like dozens of them. And she said, you know, we just hardly have anything. So at some point, I mean, I think I did get framed what I brought in that day to be framed. But after that, like, I just didn't have anything framed. And I actually just last year, I think, got something framed again for the first time. Because, you know, people started to have stock again of things. But anyway, that's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. Never mind that I'm generally bad about having things framed and fully finishing things. But that is absolutely, I mean, I have some others that are close, but that is my favorite piece that I've ever finished. And so I do want to get it framed. And in fact, that's why it was out in my basket, because I'm going to wash it and I'm going to send it away, I think, for framing. I've always wanted to try total framing. Everyone raves about them, and rightly so. So I may send it there. I haven't decided for sure. Okay, so that's all my finishes that I wanted to show you. And then I have one, what I'll call a segment finish. And that's my one of the stitch-alongs that I'm doing. And this is my Carolyn Manning Star-Touched Meadow stitch-along. So this started last November, and I am behind, although I'm doing better than I was, so that's good. And I now have 2 blocks done. I have the November block done, and then this, in March, I finished the December block. So here those are together. And they're all on one piece of fabric. So this is the bottom of the fabric, and you know, it's going to be October, November, December when we get to that point. So I'll show you the December block up a little closer. The December block, so each block is themed with flowers or a flower that's associated with that month. And so December, I believe, was holly. So there's kind of reds and dark pinks and lots of beautiful greens, and anyway, it's very pretty, as you can see. So I did finish that, and I'm very excited about that, and I started the January block, but just barely. So as I said, I'm stitching these all on one piece of fabric, and the fabric is 18 count Aida in a pale pink color. And I chose pale pink because I just felt that from what I could tell, most of the months were from the teaser, most of the months were going to have, some pinks in them, which makes sense, being flowers. So I thought pink background, and I kind of wanted to do it on linen, but I could not find a pale pink linen. So I ended up with pale pink 18 count Aida, and I'm actually pretty happy with it. And I did go with the 18 count because with 12 individual blocks that are each 77 by 77, I think, like, I didn't want it to go any bigger than that because it would be huge, like on 14 count or something. It would just be enormous. And it's going to be big as it is, even on 18 count. So that was the reason for choosing that. Okay. Okay, now we're going to move to works in progress. That is a work in progress. In fact, I've moved my Star Touched Meadow Sal. That's my morning coffee project. I work on the same project every day with my cup of coffee in the morning. So maybe half an hour to an hour every morning I work on the same project. And since I've moved the Star Touched Meadow Sal into that slot, I've been moving right along on it. So I do work on that one every day. It is a work in progress. But this is the rest of my works in progress that I worked on in March. And just a reminder, or if you're new, I have all my projects divided up sort of into categories, like big projects, medium projects, things that are close-ish to a finish, samplers that maybe aren't big or medium, or don't fall in one of those categories for some reason, whatever. And then I pick a couple things from each category, and those are my kind of pool of projects I work on that month. And then I can just work on whatever I want to whenever during the month, but I try to do at least a couple days on each of those projects during the month. And I haven't been completely successful. I think I've done this now this is the third month, and I think I've missed maybe one project each month that I never got around to doing, but that's pretty good overall, I thought. So I'm okay with it. I think it's working for me, so I'm happy about that. Okay, so one of my categories is Carolyn Manning Designs Shooting Star Patterns. They have their own category because I have so many of them. That's pretty embarrassing, isn't it? But anybody who knows me knows she is one of my favorite designers. And in particular, I love her shooting star patterns, and I've already stitched a few of them. And I've got several more on the go. And you'll see, I think, 3 or 4 of them today. So this is Cherry Blossom. Oh, I don't have a picture of the finish, or I don't have a paper picture, so I'll pop a picture in of the finished, or the cover page there, sorry. Okay, so here's where I am on Cherry Blossom. And I just love the colors in this. They are so, so pretty. Just a multitude of pinks. There's some tans in there, obviously some greens, yellows. Just, the colors are just beautiful. I just love it. And all of my shooting star patterns I'm stitching on 32 count Lugana, so that they all end up about 11 by 11 when they're finished. And the idea is that eventually I'll make them into pillows. So most of them are going on colored background fabrics. This one, Cherry Blossom, this happens to be on antique white. So this is because I couldn't find a pink or other color that went with this pattern. So Cherry Blossom is on 32 count Lugana in antique white. And I think Carolyn Manning still has her spring sale going on her website, I think until the 15th of April. So if you're in need of some Carolyn Manning patterns, hop over there because her sale is great. I think it's like you spend up to, I don't know, $30 or something and you get like 20% off your whole cart. And then if you spend more than that, you get a bigger percentage. It's really good. She has a really good sale. I manage to buy something every year, even though the last thing I need is Carolyn Manning charts. Okay, my next whip is, okay, this is the Porter Ash house, or the Porter Ash residence, excuse me, from the Debbie Patrick Historic House Collection. And these are houses in the United States that are historic houses. And Debbie Patrick charted dozens of these houses in the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s. And the patterns are still available, but they're on the secondary market, so you have to find them on eBay or Etsy. But except for a few that are like super rare, hard to find, they're pretty easy to find. So if you're interested in doing any of her patterns, you can find the patterns. And we have a sale going for this. My friend Carla, Stitch Me Sane, here on Flosstube and also on Instagram, and I started a sale called the Historic Houses Sale, and I'll try to run it across the screen. If I don't, it'll be in the drop-down box. I had some problems putting things on the screen last time, so I don't want to promise. But any pattern that's a historic house or that type of design, you're welcome to join the sale. And I actually haven't checked the hashtag in a while, but Carla was mentioning on her last video that there's quite a few photos on there. So I'm actually really excited, or quite a few posts. So I'm actually excited. I need to go and look at that. I haven't looked at it in a while. So here's where I am on the Porter Ash residence. I guess that's probably pretty good. That's good to see. Doesn't that look like a house? There's not even any backstitching or anything yet, but oh my gosh, like I just cannot get over the way she charts these. And you stitch them and you step back and you're like, it really looks like a house. Carla always says we're building these houses, and I think she's right. So I'll show it a little bit up closer. I think I worked mostly in that bottom area. Obviously, you can see where it's kind of unfinished there, but that's where I've been working. And a lot of shades of blue in this. The house is blue. It's a great pattern. I love it. So I'm stitching this on a 16 count Aida. It's from Witchelt. I forget exactly what the color is, and do I have it written down? I probably do somewhere, but I don't know where. Well, I'm sorry. It's called like, I want to say Sea Spray, but I don't think that's quite right. But it's a blue, Witchelt has a number of blue Aidas, and this has kind of a, like it's like a bluish gray, I guess. So I thought it'd be good for, kind of the sky background type look. And I picked Aida for this rather than a linen because Debbie Patrick patterns have absolutely enormous amounts of backstitching on them, and especially straight lines along the windows and all that, and the doors and the lines of the house. And I personally find that backstitching looks, for me, at least the way I do it, it looks much nicer and much crisper when I do it on Aida, where the blocks are like perfect square little blocks. Because if your tension differs at all on when you're doing it on linen, one thread gets pulled a little bit differently. And it's not that your backstitching doesn't look fine. It does. It just looks better on Aida. My backstitching looks better on Aida. So that's how I'll say it. So historic houses sell. So if you have a Debbie Patrick pattern, or you're in another country and there's a person who charts houses in your country, Carla's in Australia, and I think it's Olga, oh shoot, I can't remember her last name. Sorry, Carla. But there's a person who charts the similar types of historic houses that are in Australia, and has a whole series of them. So there's probably the same thing in other countries, especially possibly in Europe. So if you've got something like this, join our sale. Okay, oh, I'm getting ahead of myself again. Okay, so my next one is another Carolyn Manning, and this is Please Be Home for Christmas. This is another shooting star, and I will pop a picture in here. See, I'm actually putting things on the board this time, so then I'm excited to show the board, and I forget to show the picture of the finished piece. And here's where I am on this one. I'm farther along in this one because this one's older. I don't remember exactly when I started it. Maybe December 2021 or January 2022, something like that. It's been a while. This one's been in, well, I'm not making any promises about finishing any of these, but I mean, I do work on all of them all the time. So I'll bring this one a little bit closer and you can see. The colors in this are wonderful. They're sort of Victorian type colors. And by that, I mean, you know, the reds are deep, dark, winey reds, not, there are some bright reds in there, but they're mostly like the darker reds, and they're that dark, piney green and that, you know, like 895 and 937, those darker greens. They're really, really pretty all together, and there's golds and so forth in there. Makes it very, obviously very Christmassy. I also have the smalls of this pattern, and I have started them, but I haven't worked on those in a long time. I need to dig that whip out too at some point. So this is, what is this fabric? 32 count Lugana. This might just be called light green. It's a Zweigart Lugana. I think it's just light green, or maybe just green. I'm not sure if they have several shades of green or not, but it's kind of a sagey color. So it goes great with those darker greens. Okay, let me grab a sip of coffee here and see where I am. Okay. All right, this next one, this is another stitch along. This is with my friend Gail. She's GW Stitchin' Depot, and I will put her name in the drop-down box so you can find it. She started this SAL. It's called the Act of God SAL, Act of God SAL 2024, I believe is what it is. And I didn't print out a picture of this. So here's the pattern, Act of God. Long Dog Samplers, a lot of people are very familiar with this. It's one of Jules's recent releases, but it's been very popular. I've seen tons of people working on it on Instagram and other places. It's on Facebook. It's been a very popular pattern already, and you can see why. It's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so Gail started this SAL for her birthday, which I believe was March 6th. And I'm not sure exactly if I started mine on that day, but it was right around then. And I am using this exquisite floss, and I'm gonna do this so you can see it better. This is a silk floss from Silks for You. It's PR 181. And when I post this on Instagram, people often ask me if there's blues in there, because I think when it photographs, it looks blue. But they're not really blues. Like I would call these, they're sort of, this is a very earthy palette in this thread. So the colors are more like gold, browns, grays, silvers, like metallic-y looking. I mean, they're not metallic, but like metals that come from the earth, stuff like that, rather than blue. Although, as far as the grays go, they have a blue cast to them. They're a cool gray. So this is kind of hard. This is hard to show, but here's where I am. Oh goodness, I knew that was going to happen. I'm just going to hold it up because I can't really put this one on the board that well. So here's where I am. Yeah, this is better. Sorry for the see-through, but then you can at least see where I am. Obviously, I'm stitching the border first. I guess I'm a glutton for punishment, but because on long dogs, they are kind of, I mean, the border isn't exactly exciting to stitch, but I just like to have the whole border done, and then I can kind of move around if I want to stitch different parts of the sampler. So I'm going to show it to you up close, just like a piece of it. Okay, so it's washing out the color, but you can still see the very cool effect of this floss and how it changes color. And then the border has sort of a lacy effect, which is it's beautiful. So I've got, 2.5 sides done. So I need to work on that some more. That's a good thing to work on when I'm just watching TV, because I don't have to look at the pattern or anything to do the border. So I'm stitching this on 40 count. I believe it's Vintage Country Mocha linen from Zweigart, and that's one of their printed linens. And I picked 40 count because I didn't want this to be, it's a big, like most long dogs, it's a big piece, and I didn't want it to be too huge. So I actually like the size it's turning out. It's still big, but it's not going to, if I end up framing it, it's not going to cost me $500 to have it framed. And I have had things that have cost pretty close to that. It's crazy how expensive framing can be. I understand why, but man, sometimes you do get a shock when you go in there. Okay, Act of God. Okay. This next one I think is also a new start this month. This was kind of a totally unplanned new start. I saw, it might be Sarah from Sarah's Stitchy Spot, posted about a Sal. Oh, and I'm so sorry, I've forgotten the name of the person that started the Sal now. If I find it, I'll put it in the drop-down box. But the Sal is, this is for a modern folk embroidery design, and it's Jacob Sleeper Sal. So the idea was find a pattern of Jacob's of modern folk embroidery that doesn't get as much love as you think it should. That people just sort of don't notice, or whatever, has been forgotten about, like whatever. So when I saw that there was this Sal, I was like, oh my gosh, I have a pattern like that. And it's called Lily Wheel, and here's what it looks like. And this is kind of this is one of Jacob's smaller patterns, but it's from a while ago, maybe like, well, I don't even know, 2016 or something. So it's from a while ago. But it's the prettiest pattern. And here's where I am on it. So I decided to go ahead and start it for this Sal. And like a lot of Jacob's patterns that are monochromatic, you can chart it as monochromatic, you can pick your own colors. So I have a blue and a green that I've chosen, and these were just from my stash, again from that thread club. So it's kind of a soft blue and a soft green. And then the fabric is a 36 count linen from Fox and Rabbit. This is a scrap I had left from something else, and it's called Baked Clay. And I really love this linen. I would really like to get some more of it. The color is very unusual. It's kind of a medium brown, but I don't know. There's something about the modeling, the color in that modeling. It's really not coming across great on camera, but if you've ever seen Baked Clay in person, you know what I mean. It's really a special fabric. So that was kind of a spur of the moment start. And I don't know. I just work on that whenever the mood moves me, I guess is how I would say that. But that's a good one where you can put in a couple threads here and there and you can see pretty good progress. And it's not very big, so I'm okay. I didn't take on anything. I'd planned, the only start I had planned last month was Act of God, and I think I ended up with 4 new starts, so that just shows you. Okay, here's another whip that is another Carolyn Manning Shooting Star. This is called Grandma's Lilacs. And this is one that I started with Carla Stitch Me Sane a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if we had an occasion for starting it. We started it in May. I think Australian Mother's Day is the same as the United States. I think it's Father's Day that's different. Anyway, it was near Mother's Day, at least for me, because that's kind of how I always remember that we started it in May. But we both love purple, and especially purples and greens together. So this is, the colors in this are just right up both of our alleys. So here's where I am on Grandma's Lilacs. And oh, just look at all those luscious purples. And again, wonderful greens, and there's some whites in there. It's so pretty. I just love this. Okay, so the fabric on this one, again, 32 count Lugana, and I think the color is called, I'm trying to remember if the color is called lilac or lavender. Oh, I didn't write these down because I thought, I know these, I'll remember. I think the color is called lilac, actually, too. Pale lilac or something like that. But it's a Zweigart Lugana. And I mostly get my fabrics from 123 Stitch, so that would be where I got it. Oh, excuse me. Okay. All right, next. Okay, I've actually got a picture of this one. Yay. Let me take a sip of coffee first. I'm filming in the morning, and I have actually found that if I have my blind open, it kind of messes with the lighting. Like, it's better to just have my fake lighting. It's actually better for the video. But it is a beautiful day here, and the sun is shining, and I just could not close the blind the whole way. I have it partly closed, but it's such a pretty day, I just couldn't do it. Okay, so then my next one is, this is Remember Me by Teresa Kogut. And this was originally a pattern on her Patreon, which I am a member of her Patreon, and that is when I started it, September 2022. And this was one of those rare patterns. This has happened to me a few times in my stitching career. I got this in my email. She always does them the first day of the month. She's amazing. She's like clockwork. I opened it up and I was like, oh, That's like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I need to start that like today. So I rummaged around in my fabrics and I found something that would work for it. And I got enough threads to get started. And then, you know, whatever I didn't have, I got later. But I know you'd think I'd have it finished because of that, right? But I can tell you why I don't have it finished. And I've mentioned this before, but I'll talk about that while I show it to you. So here's where I am on it. And as you can see by the hanging threads there, I'm working on that flower there, that side, those big flowers that are coming down. So this is one of those samplers that has a very solidly stitched border, big solidly stitched flowers, and it's quite beautiful. And actually, Teresa designs a lot of solid things with solid stitching. Like her patterns look simple sometimes, and then they actually can take a long time to stitch because of that, but they're just beautiful. But the fabric on this is from Legacy Linen. It's a 37 count, and and again, I don't have the name of it. It's something about bees. Wild honey, wildflower honey, or something like that. But anyway, I was looking for 32 or 36 count, and I had this 37 count Legacy Linen in my stash, and I thought, well, that's perfect. But I would normally stitch with 2 strands on 36 count. So that's what I started with on this, since 36, 37, right? Wrong. If you've ever stitched on Legacy Linen, I don't know what it is. The weave is like super tight. And I mean, it's not bad it's wonderful to stitch on. It has a beautiful hand, but it's tight. And if I had it to do over, I'd be using 1 strand. But, you know, once I got a couple of those big flowers in, I just couldn't see restarting. So it's going a little slower than probably I would have hoped, because I do struggle with it and I can't work on it for a long period of time. My eyes kind of go crazy, and then I get frustrated trying to do the 2 strands on a close fabric. So I get kind of mad at myself and I put it away. But and there's a huge, as you saw in the paper pattern, there's also a big house, and that's all solidly stitched. So I have a lot of solid stitching yet, but I love it and I'm definitely going to finish it. So no questions there. I just should have done better when I picked my fabric. That was the first time I've stitched on Legacy Linen. So now I know for the future that their linens seem higher count than what they stitch up as a higher count than what they actually are. And there's other linens like that too. I don't know if it's from the dyeing process that it gets so tight, or if it's just the type of linen that they use, because it's their own linen. It's Access Commodities, it's their linen, and it's different than any other linen. It's also great because the size of the bolts they get is different. So like a fat quarter is actually somewhat bigger than a fat quarter from like Zweigart. So if you have a weird sized pattern and you need just a couple more inches one way or another, check out Legacy Linen, because their sizes are just a little bit bigger in one direction than the other. And that can be very handy. Okay, me, Alice. Okay, my next whip. This is Alice in Wonderland, and this is by Donna Stitch, which I got this on Etsy. This is a Korean designer, I believe, and she has a whole series of these fairy tale patterns. And this one, my kids are adults. I'm not stitching it for any child, but I just thought it was adorable, and I love Alice in Wonderland and just the whole story. So there's a sal for this one, I believe it's the Everything Alice sal, and Carla Stitch Me Sane and I started this sal also, and started this together. And we started it actually on the anniversary of the day that Alice in Wonderland was published, which was November something, November 15th, something like that. So that was the date that we started it. I want to say it was, I want to say it was 22. It had to be 22. So I'm not all that far along on this either for having started it so long ago, but here's where I am. And I'm trying to remember where I worked on this one. I think I worked, did I work? No, I worked over here. I came down here and, oh yeah, there's my needle. I finished up some stuff in here, and this is white, like some of these are white, so I did some white in here, and I did some of this, and I'm coming down here. So I'll let you see it a little bit closer. I still have to finish that cat. I hate eyes like that. I need to fix it. I need to fix him. So my excuse on this one, why I'm not farther than I am, is this one I'm stitching on 32 count Lugana, and it's white, but I chose to do opalescent because I thought, oh, fairy tale, won't that look pretty around the edges? And white Lugana or white opalescent, yeah, it'll look pretty. I will not be probably stitching anything else on opalescent Lugana. Now, I like opalescent fabrics. For some reason, opalescent Lugana, maybe it's because, you know, the fabrics, the threads are all plump and they don't vary at all. Like when you have that extra shiny thread woven in there, it just plays all kinds of tricks with your eyes, and especially as you get older. And I find I can only work on this for like an hour at a time, and then my eyes have had it. I just can't do anymore. So, and natural light is better than artificial light for that one too. So I have to do that one in little bits. And I think it will look nice when it's done, and I'm not sorry that I did it on the opalescent Lugana, but I probably will not stitch it. I would use opalescent linen every now and then, but I don't think I would do another piece on opalescent Lugana. It's just, it's much harder on my eyes than what I ever had anticipated. Okay, next is my last new start for March. Here's a picture. This is Squash Blossom. Yes, this is another Carolyn Manning shooting star design. Can you believe it? But here's my excuse on this one. I had to start something to celebrate my milestone number of followers, right, on Instagram. And I will say on Instagram, among my most popular posts are always anything I post with a Carolyn Manning shooting star. And so it seemed appropriate to me that I should start a new colorway of that. And here's where I am. I've actually worked quite a bit on this. Several, numerous days, I think, to get that far. But the colors in this are just amazing. Like the oranges and golds, they're just beautiful. They're just beautiful. And I mean, I guess they're autumnal, but I mean, Squash Blossom just perfectly describes this color palette. So this fabric, I was actually had a couple different colorways I was trying to decide on when I was trying to decide which one I wanted to start for this occasion. And I went into my stash of 32 count Lugana, and I had this piece of fabric. I mean, it's filming pretty well. It's actually a little bit more, there's more depth to the fabric. It's more vibrant than what it's showing. It's called Amber Yellow. And it's like a melony color, almost an orange, but not orange, but it has orange tones to it. And when I originally bought it, I think I was looking for a yellow, and I ordered it and I couldn't really tell what it was going to be like. And when I got it, I'm thinking, when am I going to use that? I mean, it's just such an unusual shade. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I bet that's perfect for squash blossom. Absolutely perfect. It's like it was made for someone to stitch squash blossom. So hey, I'm not one to tempt fate. I started squash blossom. So love that piece, love it. So that's my last new start. Like I said, plan to start 1, start 4. I don't know. We all do that, don't we? All do that? I hope I'm not the only one. I'd be happy if I had a few more finishes to go along with those starts, but I'm working on it. Okay. Okay, here's this is one of my big projects that was in my big project category that I chose for this month, but also a sampler and a reproduction sampler. This is Louise Lallier, 1901. This is by Reflet des Soies, which is a French company, obviously. And there's the picture of well, that's probably the stitched version of the reproduction. It's not the original sampler. But I don't know, these little French girls, I don't know how they managed to, their samplers just look like nothing else. They're amazing. And as you can see, this border is just no joke. There's tons of color changes in this, but it is just, but it's a wonderful pattern. Sorry, this is one that is probably not going to fit. It will not fit well on that board, so I'm just going to hold it up. So first I'll show you where I am, or first I'll show you the whole thing, and then I'll show you where I was working. So here's Louise. Here's Louise in her entirety. So there's where I am. Yikes. Okay, I can get her all in. So where you see that hanging thread is where I'm working right now. And so on this side, that's the bottom flower, and I'm about to turn the corner on the border. So my goal is kind of to get to the same place on this side. So I'm gonna just come in close so you can see some of these border flowers a little bit closer. I know this mucks up the color, I'm sorry about that. But you can see how many colors there are in those flowers. There's like 9 shades of green in each flower. They're beautiful though, and it's just amazing to me. And I really mean it when I say those little French girls, just amazing. I don't understand how someone who's, I don't know, whatever, she's 11 or something, could have stitched this. I could not have done that when I was 11. That's all I got to say. So this is on 36 count. I always want to say cream linen, but it's not cream. It's antique ivory linen. It's Zweigart Antique Ivory. And their antique ivory has a like a warm beige tone to it. And I think I checked some different colors against the threads, and I really like that one. And I'm just using the DMC on this one. It's charted for Averosois silks, and they give a DMC alternative. And at the time I started this, I had not ever used silk floss before, and there's like 60 some colors, and you saw how big it is. And I calculated the amount of silk floss it would take, and the cost was like in the 200s, $250 or something. And it's not that I couldn't have done that if I wanted to, but I'd never stitched with silk floss, and I thought, well, what if I don't like it? Or what if it's too hard for me? Or what if I start stitching the pattern and then I decide I don't want to finish it? Like, I would feel pretty bad, I don't know, not using $250 worth of floss. So I just went with the DMC, and I think it looks great. That being said, if I do another Reflet de Soie in the future, I probably would try the Soie silks, because I've stitched with silks since then, and I love it. I've never tried theirs though, so the Soie, so I'll have to try those. Okay, next is, we're almost at the end. Okay, this is Autumn Garden by the Drawn Thread, and this is a kit that my older son got me for Christmas. He got it off the Drawn Thread website. You can also get the pattern, but they kit up their patterns with linen and then all the called for threads, which for Drawn Thread patterns are usually silks, and this one is indeed the silks. So if you're thinking, wow, that is a pretty nice Christmas present, you are right. Thank you, Brandon. And the threads come like this on these really nice little cards that have the so they have just the amount you need to, actually they seem to have a lot. They're generous with the thread. And there was 2 cards for this. This pattern took 2 of these cards. But they're different ones. There's some dinky dyes and NPI silks, and there's some other ones too. But whatever it calls for, that's what they include. And this one is actually easier to just show this way too. Here's where I am. So this one, I started obviously in the middle with the house. Drawn Threads patterns have a lot of specialty stitches in them. And even though I've been stitching for a long time, I'm not particularly accomplished at specialty stitches. So I'm a little scared about them. I know I'll be able to do them, and there's very good instructions. But I thought I'll go ahead and start with the plain cross stitch first, so kind of get my feet wet. So isn't this beautiful? Now this fabric, I believe, is 32 count, and they call for using 1 strand of silk on the 32 count. And I have to say, I mean, it looks fine. Even up close, it looks fine. The coverage is fine. I was surprised by that. But, the thing about silk is, the reason you get good coverage with silk, I think it's not necessarily that it's thicker than like cotton floss, although maybe it is. But it's so soft, like it like splays out in a way that cotton thread does not do. So you just get better coverage when you're stitching something with a silk thread. So I was amazed at how good 1 strand of the silk floss looks on there, but I think it looks great. Okay, last whip, and then just a couple more minutes and we'll be done. Okay, this is great. I have paper patterns of all these. This is Blackberry House. This is Plum Street Samplers. So this is Paulette Stewart design. This is kind of an older pattern too. I think it's from, 2015. I think it says right there on the sampler. I love this, and this has kind of a special meaning to me because I bought the pattern the first time I went to New York to see my son who lives there. And yes, it's the son who got me the Drawn Thread kit. And so I bought it at a store when we were like it actually was not a craft store. It was a yarn and like a knitting shop, but they had a little section of cross stitch and embroidery kind of, and floss and stuff like that. And I bought it there. So that's kind of my special memory with this. But let me see, this one might be better on the board. So I'm stitching this on a linen that came from that fabric club that I mentioned that I just had in my stash, so it doesn't really have a name. And then I'm also using, here's where I am. I'm using a combination of flosses. It's kind of a pool of flosses I put together. There are a few of the called for overdyes. In some cases, I substituted I used the DMC alternative that Paulette gave. And then for a few of them, I just chose my own floss from my stash, flosses that I had from that thread club that I mentioned. So like this up here in the pattern, this is more like a light silver or gray, and mine is more like a steel gray. So mine is darker, but I had a big old hank of that, and I thought, well, that'll be great for this. So mine won't look exactly like the pattern, but I think that's okay. It's still gonna have the spirit of the pattern. And I really like this pattern. I'm happy with where I am. To me, this is a little bit hard because there aren't borders and things are just sort of in space, so you have to count really carefully. And I've already messed that up a couple of times. Although, you know, to some extent, patterns like that are also forgiving, because would it really matter if you put, you know, one of these stars was, you know, a few stitches down or whatever? No, it wouldn't, except that, you know, if you want to be able to count from one thing to another, it's hard when things then aren't correct because you have to leave a note for yourself and stuff like that. So I try to fix mistakes if I can. Okay, that is all my whips for March. Yay. I don't remember how many that was, but 12 or 13. Okay, so we're already at an hour, so maybe I won't do my teeny topic because I really don't want to talk for another 10 minutes, and I'll save that for next time. I wasn't sure how long this was going to go, but I'm going to end with a public service announcement. So on Instagram a couple days ago, someone, and I'm sorry, I don't have her name, she posted something about how she has this bad habit of, if she has to go and answer the telephone or something when she's working on a whip, she comes back and she finds that she's just left her needle like stabbed into her fabric, and, you know, in kind of a dangerous way. And she said, I'm not conscious that I'm doing it, but I always, you know, find that I do this. So then she asked people, like, what's your worst habit, or what's your dirty little secret to cross stitching? What do you do that you shouldn't do, or you don't think you should be doing? And a large number of people said that the thing that they do, their little dirty little secret, is that they hold the needle in their mouth when they're doing something, or needles in their mouth. And here's my PSA. I do it too, and I try so hard not to do it. I'm not a big fan of needle minders, but I always like try to put my needle in my fabric. I also keep stitch with a pin cushion right next to me, so it's really easy to put in the pin cushion. But even so, I on occasion, but here's why I try not to do that. I mean, we all know that it's dangerous, right? And we are like, oh, I don't want to swallow a needle. Well, here's a story for you. I read an article not that long ago, maybe like a year ago, about this woman. She wrote it, and she was in some kind of a sewing occupation. I think she maybe did like wedding dress alterations or something like that. And she said she was working one day and on a client's dress or whatever, and she had pins in her mouth. And she said, you know, I always knew I shouldn't do that, but like, let's be real. Everybody that alters wedding dresses keeps pins in their mouth on one occasion or another. And she said she had a pin in her mouth, and then she said she went to do something and the pin wasn't in her mouth anymore. And she said she thought it was really weird because she didn't remember swallowing it. And she said, you know, I would have thought, I would have felt it, and I would have, you know, right away realized, oh my God, you know, I swallowed a pin, and I would have at least known what had happened. But she said, even so, I didn't worry too much because I thought, well, I swallowed a pin, you know, how bad could it be? It's going to come out, and you know how it comes out. But then she, I guess, told a couple people that she worked with, and they said, you know, you really ought to just have that checked out. You ought to go to the doctor. So the doctor actually thought it could be serious. So he insisted on taking an x-ray. And here's what the x-ray found. She did not swallow the pin. She aspirated the pin. She breathed it in to her lung. Now, you wouldn't think that could even happen, could you? And she didn't feel it. She said she felt absolutely nothing. But the pin was there on the x-ray and it was lodged in her lung. So after, I'll just make the rest of this short. After consultation, the doctor had to consult with other doctor, some other doctor about what to do. She had to have surgery to remove the pin from her lung because it was too dangerous. A sharp object in your lung is like just way too dangerous to leave in there and hope it'd either work its way out or to stay in there. So they determined that it had to come out, and she had to have surgery to remove that pin from her lung. And obviously that's major surgery. So her message was, don't do the stupid thing I did, because swallowing a pin is not the worst thing that can happen. You can aspirate a pin into your lung and have to have surgery to take it out. And honestly, if she had not written this article and it was in a reliable publication, I would have thought it was made up. Like, I could not even believe that it could happen. But it scared the bejesus out of me. And I try my absolute hardest not to keep pins in my mouth or needles in my mouth anymore. And my PSA to you is, please don't put pins or needles in your mouth. I mean, it's just bad anyway, because even swallowing them, I'm sure, is awful and could be really bad. But you definitely don't want to breathe one into your lung and have to have surgery to have it taken out. So that's my PSA for the day. In the meantime, if you're up here in the United States or in the Northern Hemisphere, enjoy the springtime. We're starting to get some nice warm weather where I am in Michigan. And like I said, it's sunny today and I'm looking forward to that. So in the meantime, I usually do these about once a month. So I'll see you maybe the beginning of April, or excuse me, the beginning of May sometime. And in the meantime, try to slow down and savor life if you can. It goes by so fast. So try to take life one stitch at a time. And I'll see you in about a month, friends. Bye.